Thank you for tuning in, everyone. My name is Konrad, your host at Wednesday Night Reviews, and I'm here with Chris of Sidekick Comics on Queen Street East in Toronto. Thank you for being on the show, Chris.
No problem.
Awesome. So we are sitting in your lovely comic shop, coffee shop. How did it start?
I guess because I imagined a space that didn't exist and then wanted to make it so.
All right.
Yeah.
And this shop itself is great. It's nice size. You got a lot of comics in here, a lot of graphic novels. When you first got here, basically laid ground, if you will, what did it look like?
Oh, this space was a hole. Yeah, it was, I was like 23, I guess, so I had a bit of a time finding Toronto rent space where they would look at me with no business experience and, you know, like wet behind the ears and just be like, yeah, no. So I sort of had to develop a taste for the fixer-upper.
Okay.
As a result, like, no, I have gumption, like, I'll fix it, it'll be fine. So this space was an antique store for 45 years, and I think it was on an episode of Hoarders at a certain point.
Oh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. He had a collection of exotic birds that lived with him in this store.
That's fascinating.
Yes, it is.
Must have been an interesting cleanup when you started to take over.
Yeah, so the landlords here bought the space, and he was here. He was like a long-term tenant. So he was like built into the space. They had never seen like the walls behind his stuff. Or anything. So they fixed up like the apartments upstairs and then didn't bother to do anything down here except for make sure he paid his rent until he moved out.
Yeah, okay.
And then when he did, they were like, oh my God, what do we even do? And they had never had a commercial tenant before, which worked in my favor, I think.
Oh, that's good, all right.
Yeah, so I was like, well, no, like, we'll do it together. And it'll be fine. And it was like a bit of like a construction nightmare in some ways.
I imagine, yeah.
Like this space that we're sitting at here looks very nice, but none of this was here.
Okay.
The brick behind this is crumbling, and up there is just a hole to what I assume is the roof. Like I think it at one point was a chimney, but had just crumbled to bits. So we built this area as like a tribute to the fact that it might have been a fireplace at some point.
Probably. Maybe?
Question mark? But, you know, couldn't have a real one because of the state of the thing. So we just kind of like worked with what was here, or rather what wasn't, to create a space that would hopefully look nice. And I think that it worked out in the end.
I agree. I think this looks great. And how long has this specific location been open now?
5 years.
5 years, and if I'm not mistaken, in the Junction, you've just recently opened a second.
Yes.
So congratulations on the growing business.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, that opened mid-September.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you.
Now, when it comes to the store itself, for someone who's never been here before, when you walk in the front door, what can you expect?
So we are 50-50 cafe and comic book store, so you can expect, that. We roast all of our own coffees, so I'm in charge of all of that, all of our sourcing, all of our roasting. So it smells pretty good in here on a regular. We are a traditional comic shop in that we get like our weekly comics. We have a podcast of weekly comics reviews that comes out every Wednesday as well. At this location, we have 28 pull list customers.
Okay.
At our other location, we have 3.
Baby store.
Yeah, little baby store. So yeah, you can expect to be allowed to hang out, play board games, watch VHS tapes.
Yes, I love this, by the way. This is fascinating, and I love it. I was here earlier, the first time I ever walked in, and the Harrison, the gentleman who was here at the time, had said that, yeah, we basically customers can come in, have a coffee, and just play VHSs.
Hang out, yeah, play board games. There's a whole stack of reader comics up the front there, so people kind of spread out, do their thing, and then we have the full collection of for sale comics as well.
Yes, and it is a great collection. When someone comes in, they buy a coffee. Pretty much, I imagine, they hang out, they read. Do you get is it constantly packed? Is it sort of sparse in that way? It's
on Wednesday, we're insane.
Oh, well, that's good. I mean, new
On
comic
Wednesday,
day, right?
New comic book day is always super duper busy. No matter how much I have going on, I try to be here for at least part of the morning because I love it, and like people love that pick up their books right away before work because we open at 7 and no other comic shop does that, so they can like the people who I see every day for their coffee, all of a sudden I see and they get their stack like that day. They're like,
awesome, perfect.
Coffee, comics, coffee. So that's kind of like the flow that I've sort of like learned.
Okay.
And then on weekends it's a lot of families, and because of our neighborhood, because you can really spread out, and because of like the diversity of our collection, we see a lot of people like mom and dad buy their comics and the small ones buy their comics,
that's
and
lovely.
then everyone hangs out. It's really nice.
That's really nice.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Just so that people know, because I said, Queen Street East. What is the specific address in the neighborhood for the store?
Yeah, so we're at 1374 Queen Street East at this location, and it is considered Leslieville in Toronto.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Now, as mentioned, you've got a huge collection of comics, and you've got 28 pull lists here. So, do you get pull lists or comics rather from all the major companies? And then what other? So beyond, I assume DC and Marvel are the biggest two.
Yeah.
What other companies do you guys tend to stock?
Well, that entire shelf, so there's an entire shelf on the back wall that is just Image Comics, because they do an amazing job of like promoting creator-owned series and have a lot of really successful series right now, like Saga, Walking Dead, some of the best-selling independent series comics ever.
Period.
Yeah, just
done.
ever.
Statement.
But we've got a lot of Drawn and Quarterly. We've got a lot of Oni Press, Boom Studios, Dynamite. Like, for a second, I carry one of everything if I can. So like, perusing the back of previews for the like lesser known sort of books, like something that's not getting quite as much press is a favorite pastime of mine, though I do have a couple of like diehard true believers on staff who just like Marvel everything, every crossover, every whatever. So we have like a pretty diverse crowd here. I only hire people who are avid comics readers because I can teach you to coffee, but I can't teach you to read.
Yeah,
so,
if you're not into comics, that's not gonna happen. Yeah, fair enough.
So that's our goal here. I'm like, cleaning is good. Hanging out with people is also part of your job, but like if you have time to lean, you have time to read.
I love that.
That's what you should be doing.
If you have time to lean, you have time to read. I love it. Actually, speaking of reading, what is it that you personally read when you're reading comics?
Well, because of the podcast was actually born of the fact that on Tuesdays I would be here so late because I read everything.
Oh, like every single book, or almost, I'll say?
Of it.
Wow, that's impressive.
I only drop a book if after issue 3 I don't like it.
Thank you. That's a rule of thumb I have. If you're reading a comic,
3-issue rule.
yes,
and it's on our podcast. I'll be like, I'm 3-issue ruling, and sometimes I'll be like, oh, I've had to drop.
Good.
Yeah.
And generally, for readers out there, I completely agree with that. Like, it's easy to do issue one
Sure.
of anything. Cool. All right, you have a concept.
Pilot could go either way because it's
Right.
like 25 pages, so it might not even be enough to world build what you're trying to do. So you might be like, I don't know about this issue one,
Yeah.
but it's not long enough to know if you're into it yet. So it could. I've had series where I was like, issue one, and then I've had to completely pull back on that because by 3 I'm like, I need to know what happens.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, and that's so true because I found myself. I've picked up issue or series and I'll hit issue 3 and I'm just like,
Yeah.
not feeling it.
Yeah, if I don't care about your protagonist by issue 3, then I'm kind of like, well,
It's done.
yeah.
Yeah, especially if it's going to be possibly a run of 50 books or Walking Dead 193, I think.
Yeah.
Absolutely perfect. So like you said, you read pretty much everything.
Yeah.
In the store, you guys actively stock graphic novels galore. And then on the far end from us, and I'll have shots of this interspersed, you do have a row of actual floppies, but you've got them bagged and boarded.
We've got the back issues and all that stuff. Yeah, we definitely, by comparison to the big shops in Toronto, we definitely do less single issues, but more single issues of independent titles than other smaller shops like us. And that's sort of what sets us apart. So we have a few people who come here specifically because they know if they're looking for an Oni Press book or like an Action Labs book or like a Dark Horse book that didn't get like wide release, that maybe their smaller shop doesn't have, we have it.
Perfect.
Especially for issue ones. Like I'll try.
Just if it's new, just pull it in just in case.
Yeah, what if? That might be the next book
thing.
or whatever.
Yeah.
And oftentimes like it's good enough that, especially with the limited series that sometimes come out, 6 issues, 8 issues, like if it's good, why not?
Yeah, I'll get it all in, that way you can get it out.
Yeah.
And assumedly, if it's that good, you can get the graphic novel
Well,
in
and then
a
I
couple
know
months
to
later.
order a case of the trade because I know it was so good that I don't want to miss it, whereas it's easy to sleep on things if you don't keep up with it.
Yes, ergo the reading of everything.
Yes.
Wonderful. Actually, how many people do you have hired at this location?
Here we have 5 staff, and there we have 5 staff.
Okay, so you're pretty even 5 for 5.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming it's sort of opening shift, so I don't have a mid shift and then a night shift?
We just have a morning and the night.
Okay.
I will do a long morning, sort of, and that's okay for me. I don't make anyone else do the shifts that I do. But yeah, usually just because a lot of the nights we close up at 5, so it's pretty easy to split the day. Despite our early opening time.
So actually, yeah, so on Wednesday you mentioned you open at 7. Are you open 7 every day?
Yeah.
So it's basically Saturday to Sunday, are you open every day?
Yep.
Beautiful. So
We're open every day.
7 to 5
just
every day of the
open
week.
every day. Yeah.
Perfect.
On Saturdays we're open later, and at the other shop, because we are a shared space with Toronto Comics Embassy, which is a co-working space for people who work in comics, and we have the classroom in the basement, and that's Ty Templeton's Comics Boot Camp. So he runs classes. On class nights, we are open till 10.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool though.
Yeah.
Comic shop, coffee shop, and comic school.
Yeah.
Shared space, but it's all under one roof.
Yeah,
That's beautiful.
that's I would not open 2 shops, but it was a unicorn of a partnership. So.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
They approached me and were like, "Would you put
Really?
a sidekick in this thing?" And I'm like, "I can't say no."
No, yeah. Good for you. That's a sweet opportunity.
Yeah.
And obviously, behind yourself, on the table we're talking on, you do have a lot of board games.
Yep.
Do you try and constantly sort of update board games, get new ones when they come out?
Oh
or is it
yeah,
classics?
like over there, I think you'll see we demoed those games. Those are the new Batman animated series board games that just came out. So we're trying them out, seeing if they're playable. Because if we put be able to answer the question of how do I play this. So there's a little bit of that goes on. Sometimes things get just like, okay, this is a home game because this takes 8 hours or whatever.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I try and keep things here that are like easier to plug and play just because we get a lot of like kids and stuff, and
Okay.
it's always frustrating for a parent to sit down with a kid and
yeah.
then be like, oh no,
Here's
the manual.
20 minutes of reading, an hour of
Yeah.
setup or whatever.
Yeah, so I mean, within reason, right? Like, I want things to be approachable and be able to and sort of to have a life here, not have like 1,000 pieces that then just get lost and then it's
Fair enough.
useless.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that way someone could come in, have a coffee, play a game with friends or
Yeah.
with their kids or whatever.
Yeah.
Clean up in a fairly short period of time, an hour or
Yeah,
two,
like
and then bounce out.
our Star Wars Guess Who is pretty popular. Apples to Apples is pretty popular. Like
Okay.
the Star Wars trivia game is pretty popular. Stuff where you can pick it up and put it down.
Perfect.
People like, yeah.
Well, yeah, exactly. It's fun. It's easy.
Yeah.
And what kind of event?